this is Shayna with Against the Grain Homestead. Today we're going to be sharing with you how we water bath can tomatoes. We've been canning tomatoes for, I don't know, a very long time, several years. Anyhow, we've always done the whole blanching of the tomatoes, during the processing. But this year I decided to throw them in the freezer and just can them whenever I had time. So we need the space in our freezer now, so we're going to water bath can those frozen tomatoes. Alright, so we're going to get started canning these tomatoes. So these tomatoes, they have been frozen for a couple months in a bag, and I didn't do anything with them. I didn't score them or core them or anything like that. And when the bag of frozen tomatoes was first put in here, it came up to here, and they have been thawing for 2 days now. It is still ice cold in here. You can see here that the skin is starting to split and it just peels right off. Anyhow, and I've just stirred them a couple times to try to distribute the coldness. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take these tomatoes over to the island, and we're going to peel the skin off of them and core them and put them in a pot, and then we'll start our canning.
Squeeze the water out, right?
It doesn't matter.
You don't have to.
Okay, so I have my girls here. They are peeling the tomatoes and coring them. And we're putting the scraps, the peels and the cores in here. And then what we want to keep, the flesh part of the tomato, is going to go in here. And then we'll heat this up, and then when it gets hot, we will can it. So girls, is this a lot better? Is this a lot better than the blanching method?
Well, it depends on if you like being hot or cold more. If you blanch, you burn yourself, and if you do this, don't do it with any broken wrists.
So while the girls are working on those tomatoes, we have I'll show you our setup here. So I have my jar lifter here. We have our water bath canner right here, and it has been heating up 9 pints. And then we have a water kettle right there that's full of hot water. Our ladle here that we will use to scoop the tomatoes into the jar. Our funnel. I use a chopstick for a bubble popper. Our magnetic lid lifter for this. Like that. And then we have, then we'll just pour some hot water from our kettle into here. And then I have my bands. Everything's clean and dry, and I have my bands here. I have a towel to put the jar on while I'm filling it. Since we're doing pints, we're going to do 1 tablespoon of lemon juice per pint, and then half a teaspoon of salt per pint. So you can use canning salt or pickling salt, or this is Redmond real salt. You can use this. You can pretty much use any salt, just not necessarily iodized salt. It will turn your food kind of like a grayish color. Alright, so now we just got to wait on the tomatoes, but we will heat our tomatoes up here. So I kind of have everything set up, as a process, as like a station, 1, 2, 3 step and all that. So they're almost done with this first little batch they had, but I did want to mention that whenever we cut things that are going to be messy, we always use these baking sheets here, since they have a little lip in order to catch all this liquid. And then we also use these flexible cutting boards, that way they're not damaging the actual baking sheet itself. So just a little tip there. Okay, so we got those tomatoes peeled and cored, and now they're in the pot. We're going to heat them up and let them boil for about 5 minutes, and then we will start canning. Time to start canning. We've already taken our rack and elevated it. We've already done a couple jars here. So now we're going to do another one, and this is just my process on how I handle it. I just take a clean towel and I hold the bottom, and I take the other end and dry off the mouth over here. Maybe come around this side. And since we're doing pints, we're doing 1 tablespoon of lemon juice per pint. This is room temperature lemon juice. It's not been refrigerated, so it's not going to crack the hot jar. And then a half a teaspoon of salt. put our funnel on. And then I like to, right here, over here, I like to have my towel very close and covering up this little crack here so, you know, gunk doesn't get down between the cabinet and the stove. And then I also like to have my jar and my pot close together, again, to help with spills. So we're just going to fill up our jar with tomatoes, about a ½ inch of headspace. I use my chopstick here to just kind of push it all down. Cut that one off. Alright, so then whenever you test your headspace, you want to make sure that your jar is level. So again, we're going to move any air bubbles out, and then we need ½ inch. So our ½ inch is right here. Okay, and you can tell I'm at 1 inch headspace. So I need to fill it up with a little bit of liquid. Again, we just want to get out our air bubbles, any that we may have. Check our headspace. Alright, and we're just going to wipe off the mouth of the jar and also the area that the screw band goes down on. I want to make sure that the top of the jar, the mouth, is wiped off, because if there's anything on there, then your lid, you won't have a proper seal. So I dry off my lid, put my lid on. So I just put a finger here and put my band on, and you just want to get it down. You don't want to crank down on it, okay? You just kind of get it fingertip tight. So you see how it's really loose right here? So we go, and you see how it's getting tighter? Just go like that. Alright, you're not cranking down, it's just fingertip tight. And then we put it in the canner, and we start the next one. Okay, and then whenever you fill them, you want to leave ½ inch of headspace. So here at the neckline to the top is 1 inch, and at the bottom of this, where the screw band starts, this is ½ inch, okay? So we just want to make sure we leave ½ inch of headspace, and we've already made sure to remove all the bubbles and stuff and kind of level it out. I'm going to show up here on top now. Now for the mouth, after we get it all, the tomatoes put in here, we want to wipe the mouth and the sides where the band goes real well. Do you see right here on top of the mouth, there's a little bit of tomato stuff right there. We want to make sure that we wipe it clean, because if you have anything on there, it can keep your lid from sealing. So we just take our jar, or our lid, it's been in some hot water, and I just dry them off and put them on there. Then I just put my band on, and I just kind of hold a finger in place. Alright, now as far as how far to turn it and how tight to turn it, you can see it's pretty loose right now. Okay, we don't want to, crank down on it. We just want to get it fingertip tight. So fingertip tight is where you just take your fingers, okay, and there's some resistance right there. We just go a little bit more, and that's it. Okay, so see how, I don't know if you can really see that or hear that, but we're not cranking down like that, okay? So it's loose. It's pretty loose. We're just going till there's some resistance and just go a little bit more. All right? Put it in the canner. We keep going. Okay, so now we have all of our jars filled up. We're just going to lower them into the water, and we might need to remove some of the water. We'll see. Okay, the rack is down on the bottom. Alright, and it's level. I only need 1 inch of water above the jars. So I use a tape measure, and it shows me I'm about 2.5 inches of water. So I'm going to remove some of this water. Pause it. Am I ready? Okay, so I've just been taking this and scooping out some of the water. Doesn't take much. Alright, and we're right at an inch of water. So now this is ready for processing. Put our lid back up and it's on a high heat. Once it starts boiling again, it's been very, very hot this entire time. But once it starts coming to a rolling boil, then we will start counting the processing time at that point. And for these pints, it needs to go at a rolling boil for 40 minutes. The timer just went off. These have processed for 40 minutes. So I turned the burner off. Now we're going to remove the lid. And anytime you remove a lid and there's a lot of pressure or steam in it, or it could be boiling, you always want to just turn the lid away from you so it'll act as a shield. Okay? Alright, so we took the lid off. Now we're going to let them sit in here for 5 minutes. And then after 5 minutes, then we will go ahead and take them out of the pot. Our 5-minute timer has gone off. You can see the water has stopped boiling. So now I need to elevate this rack and go ahead and take the jars out. I've taken some of the jars out, but I want to go ahead and show you. You may notice that I've taken like every other jar out first. I do this because since this rack is just hanging on here, if you were to take like all this side out first, sometimes the rack can kind of flip a little bit. Okay, so the 9 pints, they are out, and I have them on an elevated baker's rack here just so they can, kind of cool a little bit, and then I have a towel just to help soak up any water that falls off, from the canning process. So after about, let's see, it's about 4:30 in the afternoon now, so probably in the morning when I wake up, I'll test these, make sure they have all sealed, and then I'll go ahead and I will remove the bands. But that is how to easily can. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. It is the next morning, so we're going to see if these are all ready and sealed, and we'll take the bands off. We will label them and wipe them down. Alright, so you can see that I have already wiped off these first 3 because, they were pretty white, from the minerals in the water. So now they are all wiped off and clean and pretty. And I went ahead and started labeling them. I took the bands off and I pushed down on all of the center of the lids. None of them are springing back. And then the last thing to check is just that fingertip thing. You just take the tips of your fingers and just grasp the outer edge of the lid and lift it up by that. That's another way to make sure that it's properly sealed completely. Alright, so I will go ahead and finish wiping off the rest, labeling them, taking the bands off, and I will put them in our storage room.